My son texted me that his wife didn't want me at the baby shower because I make things about myself. He told me to just send a gift, that it would be more helpful anyway. So I did. I sent her a DNA test kit. 2 weeks after the results came back, my daughter-in-law vanished without a word. When she finally returned, the truth that came out changed everything about our family. Before I dive in, make sure you subscribe and comment down below where you're watching from. I love hearing your stories too. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 56 years old, and for most of my life, I've been defined by being Daniel's mom. His father, my late husband, passed away when Daniel was still in high school. From that day forward, it was just the two of us. I worked double shifts, missed holidays, and gave up pieces of my own life because raising Daniel right mattered more than anything. When he graduated college, I cried with pride. When he got his first real job, I felt like all my sacrifices had finally paid off. And when he told me he was getting married, I thought my heart would burst with happiness. I wanted nothing more than to see him build the kind of family I had always dreamed of. Daniel's wife, Lila, seemed sweet at first. She was polite, she smiled, but something about her felt closed off. I tried to give her space, hoping she'd warm up to me over time. I told myself not everyone is immediately close with their in-laws. But as months passed, the distance only grew. She rarely invited me over. She kept conversations short, and she always found a reason to avoid spending too much time together. Still, I kept telling myself it would change once the baby came. I thought a grandchild would finally bring us all together. I pictured myself helping decorate the nursery, baking cookies for Daniel like I used to, and rocking that baby to sleep while humming the same lullabies I sang to him. I was so sure this new chapter would give me back the sense of family I had been missing since my husband died. That's why the message I got from Daniel about the baby shower hit me like a punch in the chest. When Daniel's text popped up on my phone, I stared at it for a long time before I could even process the words. He had written, "Mom, Lila feels like you make things about yourself. It'll be less stressful if you don't come to the shower. Just send a gift. That's more helpful anyway." My chest tightened as I read it over and over, trying to understand how my son, the boy I raised with every ounce of love I had, could send me something so cold. A baby shower is supposed to be about celebration, family, and support. How could I be the one person told not to come? I felt humiliated. It wasn't just the fact that I was being excluded. It was the way it was done. A text message. No phone call, no explanation face-to-face, just a short message that pushed me to the side. I wanted to believe it was Lila's doing, that Daniel was simply repeating her words. But that didn't take away the sting. My own son didn't fight for me to be included. He didn't even soften it with kindness. He just delivered the message and expected me to accept it quietly. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I had helped Daniel with homework, where we had eaten birthday cakes together, where I had once thought we would gather as a bigger family when he had children of his own. My hands shook as I reread the text. My first instinct was to call him immediately, but I forced myself to breathe and think. If I reacted out of anger, I would only prove Lila's point that I make things about myself. Eventually, I picked up the phone and called him anyway. When he answered, his voice sounded tired, like he was already bracing for an argument. "Daniel," I said, trying to keep my tone calm, "I don't understand. Why would Lila think I make things about myself? I just want to be part of this. This is my grandchild." There was a pause before he answered. "Mom, please don't make this harder. Lila is stressed enough with the pregnancy. She doesn't want to feel judged or overshadowed at her own shower." Judged? Overshadowed? Daniel, when have I ever judged her? All I've done is try to be kind to her. Do you really think I'd show up to the baby shower and make it about me? His sigh was heavy, the kind that carries exhaustion and a touch of guilt. "I know you don't mean to, Mom, but sometimes you just take over. You like to tell stories, you like to give advice, and it can be overwhelming for her. She just wants to enjoy the day without any extra stress." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. To me, sharing stories and giving advice wasn't taking over. It was how I showed love. It was how I passed down the lessons I had learned. But here my son was, reducing all of that to being a burden. My eyes stung with tears, and I fought to keep my voice from breaking. So that's it? After everything I've done for you? I'm not even welcome at the celebration of my first grandchild's life? Mom, he said firmly, this isn't about you. Please respect that. Just send a gift. And with that, he ended the call. I sat in silence, devastated. It felt like I had been erased from a chapter of Daniel's life, like all my sacrifices and all my love no longer mattered. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on anything else. I walked around the house aimlessly, replaying every interaction I had ever had with Lila. I remembered the forced smiles, the way she avoided eye contact when I asked about her family, the clipped responses whenever I tried to bond with her. At first I had brushed it off as shyness, maybe even insecurity, but now I began to wonder if there was something deeper. Why was she so determined to push me away? Why did she feel threatened by my presence at her baby shower? The more I thought about it, the more suspicious I became. My gut told me this wasn't only about personality clashes or boundaries. There was something Lila didn't want me to see, something she was hiding behind the excuse of me being too much. That night, I sat on my bed scrolling through baby shower invitations on social media, looking at other families laughing, hugging, celebrating. My heart ached. I wanted that with my son. I deserved that with my son. But instead, I was sitting alone, excluded, questioning my place in my own family. The conflict wasn't just that I couldn't go to the shower. It was that my son had chosen his wife's discomfort over my inclusion. He had chosen silence over standing up for me. It left me with a wound that cut deeper than I wanted to admit. And underneath that pain was a new determination growing in me. If Lila wanted me out of the picture, I needed to know why. If she thought I would just quietly step aside, she didn't know me as well as she thought. After that phone call with Daniel, I couldn't shake the hollow feeling inside me. I felt like I had been pushed out of my own family. The rejection stung, but it was the suspicion that kept me awake at night. Something wasn't right. Lila's behavior had always been a little odd, but now her determination to keep me out of such an important moment seemed more calculated than emotional. It didn't sit well with me. I replayed old memories in my mind, searching for clues. The first time Daniel introduced Lila to me, she was polite but distant, as if she were performing friendliness instead of feeling it. I tried to ask about her family, where she grew up, her parents, siblings, but her answers were vague. She would quickly change the subject or laugh it off, saying, "Oh, it's boring stuff." At the time, I brushed it off as shyness, but the more I thought about it now, the more I realized she had carefully avoided letting me in. The baby shower text felt like the last straw. I wasn't just being kept away from an event, I was being deliberately shut out. And the question that haunted me was, why? Why was Lila so determined to keep me at arm's length? I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through baby gifts online. I wanted to pick something meaningful, but every time I looked at blankets or baby clothes, my chest tightened with bitterness. That wasn't the kind of gift I wanted to send. Daniel and Lila had made it clear that they didn't value my presence. I didn't want to give them something they could just toss in a pile with everyone else's presents. I wanted to send something that would matter, something that couldn't be ignored. That's when the idea came to me. Sudden, bold, and a little reckless. A DNA test kit. I had seen advertisements for them around the holidays, the kind where families discover fun facts about their ancestry. But I also knew these tests had the power to uncover long-buried secrets. If Lila had something in her past she was trying to keep hidden, this might expose it. At first, I hesitated. Was it too much? Was it petty? I paced around my living room, arguing with myself out loud. "You're just being dramatic, Evelyn," I muttered. "You're hurt and lashing out." But then another voice in me, the voice that had carried me through years of hardship, spoke louder. "No, you have every right to know what kind of family your grandchild is being born into. If Lila can push you away this easily, maybe she has something to hide. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became. Lila's strange behavior, her secrecy, her coldness toward me, it all lined up with someone who was protecting a lie. And if that lie was big enough to cause her to cut me off, I needed to uncover it. Not out of spite, but out of love for my son and future grandchild. So I ordered the kit. I remember my hands trembling slightly as I typed in my credit card information, but there was also a rush of determination. This wasn't just a gift. This was my way of reclaiming some control in a situation where I had been stripped of my voice. When the package arrived, I wrapped it neatly in pastel paper with little baby bottles and strollers printed on it. I placed it inside a gift bag with tissue paper and a handwritten note that read, "For the baby, but also for the family. Every child deserves to know where they come from." My words were carefully chosen, gentle on the surface, but pointed underneath. I dropped it off at Daniel and Lila's house myself. Lila answered the door. Her smile didn't reach her eyes when she saw me standing there. "Oh, hi, Evelyn," she said, shifting awkwardly in the doorway. "I just wanted to bring this by," I said, handing her the bag. "For the shower." I couldn't be there, but I still wanted to contribute. She accepted it slowly, peeking inside. When her eyes landed on the DNA test, I saw something flicker across her face, something sharp and unsettled. She quickly covered it with a tight smile. "That's unique. Thank you." For a moment, we stood there in silence. Her grip on the bag tightened, and I could tell she didn't know what else to say. Finally, she muttered, "I'll let Daniel know you stopped by," before closing the door. Walking back to my car, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and unease. I didn't know what would come of it, but I knew I had just set something in motion. This wasn't just about a baby shower anymore. It was about uncovering the truth behind Lila's walls. Over the next few days, I waited. I tried to distract myself with chores and errands, but every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped a beat. I wondered what Lila thought when she unwrapped the kit in front of her friends at the shower. I wondered if Daniel questioned it, if they argued about it later. Most of all, I wondered what the results would reveal. I had no idea then how much my gift would shake the ground beneath us. I only knew I wasn't going to let myself be erased quietly. If the truth was out there, I was going to find it, no matter the cost. For the first few days after dropping off the gift, I heard nothing. No thank you, no acknowledgement, not even a text from Daniel. I tried to convince myself that maybe they were just busy with the baby shower, but deep down I knew something was off. Lila's face when she saw the DNA test flashed in my mind over and over. That flicker of panic in her eyes told me I had struck a nerve. A week passed. I finally texted Daniel, asking how the shower went, and if they got my gift. His reply came hours later, short and distant. "Yeah, thanks for the gift. We'll talk later." That was it. My stomach twisted with unease. "We'll talk later" was never a good sign. Another week rolled by, and silence filled the gap between us. No calls, no updates, nothing. I felt like I was standing outside a locked door, desperate to know what was happening inside. Then one night, Daniel finally called. His voice was strained, as if he hadn't slept in days. "Mom," he said, "Lila's gone." I froze. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "She left," he said flatly. "She packed a bag 2 weeks ago and went to stay with a friend. She hasn't told me when she's coming back." I could barely catch my breath. My daughter-in-law, pregnant with my grandchild, had vanished, and the timing wasn't lost on me. 2 weeks. The same amount of time it would take for the DNA test results to arrive. My heart pounded. "Daniel," I asked carefully, "did something happen? Did she get the test results?" There was a long pause, then a sigh. "Yes, they came." And she completely lost it. She wouldn't talk to me. She just started crying, yelling, saying she needed space. Then she was gone. I gripped the phone tighter. "What did the results say?" Another silence, heavier this time. "Mom, it turns out the man she thought was her father isn't her biological dad. Her whole family history is different from what she believed. She said her mother lied to her. that she built her identity on a story that wasn't real. She didn't want me, or you, to know. I sat there stunned. I had suspected something was off, but I hadn't expected this. My mind raced through every memory of Lila avoiding questions about her past, every awkward smile when family came up in conversation. It all made sense now. She wasn't just being distant because of personality differences. She was carrying a secret that weighed so heavily on her that she tried to keep me as far away as possible. Daniel's voice broke into my thoughts. She feels humiliated, Mom. She said she doesn't want anyone looking at her differently. She said she can't face me right now, can't face you, can't face anyone. His voice cracked. I don't know what to do. She's the mother of my child, and she's falling apart. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. My instincts had been right. There had been something Lila was hiding, but sitting there, listening to my son's voice tremble, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt complicated. Angry that she had treated me so coldly when she was the one carrying lies, but also sad for her. Imagine finding out your entire identity wasn't what you thought. Imagine being pregnant, emotional, and then having the ground pulled out from under you. 2 days later, Daniel called again. She's back, he said quietly. She wants to talk. She said she's ready to explain. When I arrived at their house, the air was thick with tension. Lila sat on the couch, her eyes red and swollen from crying. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then, with a shaky voice, she said, I owe you both an explanation. She told us everything. How she had grown up believing her father was a hard-working man who raised her, loved her, and supported her. But her DNA results revealed another story. Her mother had an affair decades ago, and the man who raised her wasn't her biological father. She had no idea who her real father was. Her mother had kept it hidden, even from Lila herself. I felt like my whole life was a lie, she admitted, tears streaming down her face. When I saw that DNA kit, I panicked. I thought you would see through me, Evelyn. I thought you'd figure out something was wrong, and I wasn't ready to face it. That's why I didn't want you at the shower. That's why I pushed you away. Her words cut deep. The rejection I had felt wasn't because I was overbearing or unwelcome. It was because she was drowning in shame. She thought keeping me out was easier than confronting the truth. Daniel sat beside her, holding her hand, his face pale but calm. We'll figure this out, he told her gently, but running away doesn't fix it. We're a family, and we have to face this together. In that moment, I looked at Lila differently. She wasn't just the woman who had excluded me. She was a scared young mother, unraveling from a secret she hadn't asked for. I still felt hurt by how she had treated me, but I also saw her humanity. The climax of this storm wasn't about me being left out of a baby shower. It was about a secret that could have destroyed them both, and by sending that DNA kit, I had unknowingly ripped it open. In the weeks after Lila's confession, the air in our family shifted. The tension didn't vanish overnight, but the silence that once stood between us was replaced with fragile, honest conversations. Daniel and Lila started going to counseling together, trying to work through the feelings of betrayal she carried toward her mother and the shame she carried inside herself. For the first time, I wasn't being pushed away. Instead, I was slowly being allowed in. I won't lie, my emotions were messy. Part of me still hurt from being excluded from the baby shower. That sting didn't disappear just because I finally understood the reason. But another part of me began to see Lila differently. She wasn't the cold daughter-in-law I had painted in my mind. She was a woman who had built her life on a foundation she thought was solid, only to discover it was cracked from the start. Her avoidance wasn't about me being unworthy. It was about her being afraid I would uncover what she didn't even fully know herself. There were moments where I caught myself wanting to say, I told you so, or remind her how much her rejection had hurt me. But when I looked at her swollen belly, when I heard the baby's heartbeat at the doctor's visit, she finally invited me to. I realized something important. Holding on to bitterness would only poison the future I wanted so badly with my grandchild. I had to let go. Not for Lila's sake, but for my own peace, and for the little life that was about to enter this world. One afternoon, about a month later, Lila came over to my house alone. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had cried the night Daniel told me not to come to the shower. She looked nervous, her hands folded tightly in front of her. "Evelyn," she began softly, "I owe you an apology. I treated you unfairly. I let my own fears decide how I treated you, and I shut you out when you wanted nothing more than to be part of this family." I listened quietly as she spoke, her voice breaking. "I thought if you got too close, you'd start asking questions, and I wouldn't be able to hide the truth. It was easier to paint you as the problem than to face what I didn't want to know. I'm sorry for hurting you." For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I thought about all the lonely nights I had spent feeling erased, the humiliation of being told to just send a gift, the ache of wondering if my son had chosen his wife over me permanently. Then I reached across the table, placed my hand on hers, and said, "Thank you for telling me that. I can't pretend it didn't hurt, but I don't want to live in the hurt anymore. I want to move forward, for Daniel, for you, and for the baby." Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded. That day, something broke open between us. For the first time, she let me in, not just into her home, but into her heart. The months that followed weren't perfect. There were still awkward moments, still times when Lila pulled back, still days when Daniel looked caught in the middle. But there were also small victories. She asked me to help shop for baby clothes. She let me feel the baby kick. And when she finally went into labor, I was the second call after her own mother. I stood in that hospital room, holding my grandchild in my arms, and I knew that everything, the pain, the confusion, the DNA kit, the 2 weeks of silence, had led to this moment. What I learned is that family isn't always neat or easy. Sometimes love comes wrapped in hurt. Sometimes trust has to be rebuilt from the ground up. But if you let bitterness win, you lose the chance at something greater. I had almost let my pain keep me from seeing the bigger picture. By choosing forgiveness, I not only got closer to my grandchild, but I also gained a chance to truly understand and accept Lila as she was. Looking back now, I realized the baby shower wasn't the celebration I thought I needed. The real celebration came later, when we faced the truth, when walls came down, and when I finally got to hold that little life in my arms. It wasn't the path I expected, but it was the one we had to walk to become a family again. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Sometimes rejection isn't about you at all. Sometimes people push you away because they're protecting wounds you can't see, and while you can't control their choices, you can choose how you respond. I chose forgiveness, and it changed everything. Thank you for listening to my story. If you want more real-life stories like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your story too.